Hello, I'm Daniela Saioni, a screenwriting coach, story editor, and top 1% screenwriter on Cover Fly, and I'm coming to you today from Isola d'Elba in Tuscany, which, on an unrelated note, is the namesake of the world's longest palindrome. Able was I, ere I saw Elba. And today I wanted to do a long overdue talk on a screenwriting topic that I believe does not get discussed nearly enough: the character work. After story editing and punching up well over 100 scripts between my students and my clients over the years, I have noticed a distinct pattern on the difference between a good script and a great script, and even the difference between a script that doesn't work at all and one that does. 90% of the time, the fix is in doing and or applying the character work. In my preliminary interviews with my story editing clients, I am always surprised to hear when writers have little to no process on how they create characters. I'm guessing this is because of our general obsession with premise, plot, and structure in Hollywood. A lot of people don't ever train in this and assume it'll all just work itself out in the end. But when a writer says to me, I will leave the character work up to my cast, that simply does not compute in my brain, both as a writer and an actor, because for me, in the way that I teach and use character work, how you specifically design the characters is the basis for making choices on everything else about your script, the story, the structure, the scene work, the dialogue, and in comedy, the specificity of the jokes. The character work is foundational, and doing it early and adapting and refining it along the way in the journey of developing your script, of course, saves you so many unfocused rewrites later on. And as someone who has had multiple contest wins and high placements on the first or second drafts of my screenplays, true story, with some of my students achieving similar results, I am convinced that the secret sauce is in making some key choices, including and especially with respect to the character work, before you structure your story. This is a process I hone and teach in my feature film and TV writing programs that I refer to as the writing before the writing. Although I teach character work in a very specific way, which in my case was influenced by a combination of my script analysis training as an actor with John Strasberg, and initially through the classic book The Art of Dramatic Writing by Lajos Egri, and then through the great work of one of my teachers, Julie Gray, in updating that approach to character development in the 21st century, not to mention my obsession with human psychology and behavior, I believe in tools, not rules, and I don't think there has to be any one way of doing the character work. Look, if the result of whatever process you use is clear, compelling characters with a logic and consistency of behavior that makes them feel real and yet still manages to delight and surprise us, I won't even have to ask you about your character work when I'm story editing or punching up your screenplay. But more often than not, this is what I hone in on to suggest the most effective story edits, and the results can be night and day. Not only does the design of each individual character need to be solid, but also the engineering of the differences and relationships between them. And if you come to me with a script to punch up and you cannot articulate basic things about your characters, such as what they want, what they need, and what their major flaw is, most especially their flaw in comedy, I'm likely to tell you that your script is not yet ready for punch-up. You would not believe how many times writers tell me they create characters by casting the roles in their head, or worse, basing them on fictional characters that already exist in other books, movies, or TV shows. I mean, these can potentially be a quick way into starting the work, but it barely even scratches the surface. Your character's external goal, their want, will help drive your story choices. And their internal need, the thing that they should probably be looking to do instead in order to achieve happiness, but they don't know it yet, will help lead you to the most satisfying choice for their transformation in a feature film, or the thing that they will almost never figure out in a TV series until it's over, because TV characters change slowly, if at all. The flaw is the thing that continually trips up your characters and often keeps them from getting what they want and what they need. Just like in life, until we learn and grow by overcoming our major flaw to get what we need. Spoiler alert, most humans never get to that level of enlightenment without a lot of therapy and or a lot of hard-earned wisdom. But our movie characters will often do it over the course of a 2-hour story, so we need to know the specifics of their psychology to take them on that transformational journey while bringing the audience on board. Now let's focus on that flaw for a moment, because I specialize in comedy writing, and my work as a teacher specifically focuses on the relationship between trauma and comedy. So the flaw you choose drives everything. Having an understanding of human psychology definitely helps, and knowing how the traumas in our lives, especially those endured in early childhood, serve to motivate human behavior and the choices we make in life form into our enduring, overarching major flaws. We all have them, and we all have one that is the mother of them all, and so do our characters. If we understand what makes our characters tick, your audience will have a fighting chance to understand and want to watch them as well. Now, you want to make sure that the major flaw you endow each of your characters with is as primal as possible, especially in television, where you may have to put your character through the ringer over dozens or even hundreds of stories. So, how do you know if you've chosen a flaw that has enough juice to fuel the character engine of your show? When you start sketching out their behavior and coming up with their flaws, ask yourself if there is something underneath that which could be causing all of those behaviors. For example, you may create a character who is a compulsive liar. They cheat on their wife, they have multiple addictions, they're always late, they're irresponsible with money, they have poor hygiene. Okay, there's a cluster of flaws, but are any of them big enough on their own to be the major flaw that can drive a character through the life of a television series? I'm sure we can all agree that many of the flaws I just listed there are huge, and people often go with addiction as being the major one. But there are actually deeper choices you can make about why a character would exhibit this cluster of behaviors, including and especially the addiction. And by the way, each of the behaviors are clues to the audience about the character's underlying major flaw. For the character traits I just described, there are multiple possibilities that could be the root cause of these behaviors, from something like Peter Pan syndrome to narcissism. The nuances of these flaws and how they will play out in the choices your character makes are going to be different. Another possibility is one that several classic comedy characters wear underneath all the humor when you dig deep enough, and that is self-loathing. You could go with that as a primal flaw or something else, as long as you go with a major flaw that makes sense from a human behavioral standpoint and also makes sense to you so that you can write it. Become an observant nerd about human behavior to inspire your character work. And there are also some books you can reference to learn even more, such as Psychology for Screenwriters and The Emotional Wound Thesaurus, A Writer's Guide to Psychological Trauma. In my 5-day challenges, I ask my writers to start by figuring out their own major flaw or that of someone very close to them in creating original work. And it's no surprise to me that multiple scripts that began as concepts in my 5-day personal TV comedy series and feature film premise creation challenges resulted in scripts that got optioned and sold, because the market is looking for personal original stories. So write what you know, but know yourself first as a human being and as an artist. As a writer, you then want to understand how this flaw came to be formed in your character's journey of life. Usually it's a major trauma or series of traumas, most often endured in childhood and then probably reinforced later in life. Whether the audience ever knows or gets a glimpse into their backstory or not, you as the writer need to know it so that you can write your character with clarity and empathy. As actors, we do the character work as well, of course, but the difference is that we are ideally working organically from the clues provided to us in the script in the first place by the writer, what our character says, what others say about them, and every choice they make in the story. Now, that's not to say that your cast and director won't add anything that you might not have seen that makes sense with and even elevates the narrative. The great ones absolutely will. Filmmaking is a living, breathing, collaborative process after all. But not being clear on your character work in the first place makes everyone else's job after you that much more difficult. Compelling character work will not only hopefully make your script shine, it will help your marketing and sales and your audience retention. In comedy especially, your fool's flaw is the crux of the matter and worth spending the time on to work out. I teach screenwriting through a comedy lens because that is how I see the world, and it's the genre I specialize in. But about 40% of my students do write in other genres because the process and core concepts apply across all genres. The comedy training is an additional layer of skill sets that few people teach all in one screenwriting program. If you write or want to write TV series or feature film, or go deeper into how to execute the character work, consider one of my screenwriter training programs, From Schtick to Script for television and Make 'em Laugh for 90 minutes for feature film. Or for more advanced writers who want to learn about story editing, consider my annual Story Editor Studio program. I'll post links to those programs as well as how you can work with me as your story editor or punch-up artist in the video description below, or check the bio in my link tree if you're watching me on Instagram or Facebook. All right, everyone, happy writing and ciao from Italy.
you.